Due to some new lore information that we find out about Nika in chapter 1136, it brings me back to something I once held very highly in regard. And this was another topic that I talked about with fellow YouTuber Adam Jinrakai during the time that he was on the Roll Skull podcast with myself and my co host Zach. So, the thing that came to mind was about human fruits. As you may or may not know, in the way that Zoans are categorized for the most part, they are meant to replicate, at least I think, how animals are categorized in real life in a very scientific fashion. So in the way that you have the creature first and the model type second, is supposed to replicate how, say, animals belong to a domain, a kingdom, a phylum, a class, an order, a family, or then a subfamily, right? So the whole animal model, whatever, is supposed to replicate that sort of breakdown of thinking. With that being said, I think all human fruits give the same ability roughly. What I mean by that is all human fruits bestow their users with some sort of selective intelligence. What do I mean by this? Well, in the standard human fruit that Chopper has, he is a reindeer, of course, so he just gets human intelligence, or a human's capacity to learn complex things, which is why he is able to become a doctor, right? In another case, though way less documented, with the character Onimaru, the weird fox from Wano that was fighting Zoro back in the day, I think with his dough fruit, which is the human fruit model Oyudo, which is a just big monk human yokai, I think in that way he just gets a human form, clothes, the ability to speak very general things because he seems to be very ogre-like. Next, with Sengoku, because he's called Sengoku the Buddha and is known for his strategic methods in combat, I'm going to say that his fruit, the human fruit model Great Buddha, is the thing that gave him that enhanced intelligence. Now, when we come to the human fruit model NIKA, a very interesting thing has occurred now thanks to the two depictions that we have of him. The first depiction that we have of NIKA is him holding a sword and a spear. The second depiction, which is the Elbathian depiction, is him holding a sword and a shield. So, I think the special intelligence that the fruit has bestowed upon Luffy is that of an advanced lexicon of weapons. Even though said weapons he most likely cannot use himself because we have many examples of that. However, not only does Luffy know this weird lexicon of all these different weapons, tanks, elephant guns, desert eagles, which was weird. Do you remember that? That was a bazooka technique. Gatling guns, etc., etc. But then he knows how to utilize his rubber body in order to replicate the function of the weapon in mind in the most efficient manner. That's a lot when you think about it. Like, how does he, first of all, know that these weapons even exist? Because, mind you, he is a hick from the East Blue in a town that is next to a trash heap and a jungle. How does he know all this? You know, it's really weird when you stop and think about it, because the only weapon that we know of for sure that he knows before he eats the fruit is that of a pistol, because he was bragging to Shanks that his punch will be as strong as a pistol or something to that effect. So all he knew before he ate the fruit was that pistols existed, as far as we know. So I think that's the fruit letting him in on all these different means of war throughout the fruit's existence and means to wage war, because in order to fight for liberation, you need weapons. So given that NIKA can, one, spawn things out of his hair, and two, be depicted with all these different weapons now, it kind of makes you think that, well, perhaps NIKA is a bit of a, I guess, a war deity in a way, because like in chapter 1136, the giants don't know if he is a deity of liberation or destruction, but in both cases, you need weapons in order to achieve both results. So in being the culmination of all of what NIKA is, whether that be good or bad, perhaps it bestows this mass lexicon upon its user, and then the user can go about using that lexicon and however they wish. But what's interesting about it is that Luffy can't use the actual weapon, which in hindsight reminds me of a draft character that Oda planned from the very beginning that was going to be Frankie, I believe. It looked like this weird little water nymph creature, like a tiny little fairy guy. And his whole bit was that he could blacksmith weapons, but he couldn't use them. So instead of making him, perhaps that idea got split many a ways. One, we have Frankie, who is a shipwright and can make all sorts of things. And he even made a sword, but he can't use it. Then on the flip, we have Luffy with the human fruit model NIKA, who supposedly can use this mass lexicon to use his body in all these sort of weird ways, but actively cannot use traditional weapons. And two, it's very funny as well that at one point Luffy transformed into a tiny little chibi version of himself, like the water nymph guy that was depicted in older sketches when Gear 3rd went off in the pre-time skip. So it's a very interesting dichotomy. Like, he knows what a sword is, but he can't use a sword. But maybe if he spawns the sword from himself, he would be able to use it in however he imagined a sword could be used. I know that's a lot, but the point of it is that I think the reason why Luffy knows as many weapons as he does is because of the weapons intelligence that was bestowed upon him via his devil fruit. And then the creativity and how he replicates said weapons could just be in the way that he utilizes the knowledge that he has gained from the fruit, seeing as how he has no real desire to use any conventional weapons, it seems. He can just do everything on his own. With that being said, that's all I have for you today. Give me your thoughts and tell your friends about Polypede. What?